Hey guys, yeah, it's been a struggle to get to this point, and yeah, it's not been a good start either. That's what I kind of wanted to put on, basically that if it's going to play, and no, it's not playing. Oh, yeah. Um, I guess we must just roll with the punches with that. Now, how do I bring the screen down? Do I minimize it? Exit full screen. Okay, pressure. Okay, so that is where Stephanie, John, her husband, and I were a little bit earlier today. I'll see if you can see what all the fuss is about in those pictures. Maybe if I press play, uh, what is going on? Well, this is a video. Maybe it's not a video. Um, I'm a little bit confused. Try the video that I want to play. So much for the big reveal. So yeah, I've spent a lot of today after I came back trying to just get the second monitor to display. Probably spent 3 hours just trying to do that. And this is all just an effort just to try and go live. So yeah, it's what do you call it? Baby steps. I just can't find the mob file that I'm looking for. Not that one. Anyway, how's everybody doing? Let's see who's here. Are there any comments? Stephanie, Kristen says earlier, I hope you're not getting frustrated. I actually am. It's always such a mission just to go live, and it sucks up hours and hours of my time. For example, what I needed to do here was download a display driver, and that, as I said, took probably 2.5 to 3 hours just to navigate that whole process when you could be doing something else. So really, it is definitely frustrating. I kind of had what I had set up was just a little movie clip. Now I can't actually find it. If I can see it here. Seems to have disappeared. Yeah, it's definitely frustrating. Anyway, it's not the one that I want to play, but let me just play this one anyway. Move it over. And do that. That's kind of the clip that I wanted to open up the live with. And then it sort of seemed to disappear. But anyway, there you go. Let's look at some of your comments. By the way, Stephanie, I'm glad you made it home safe. It was quite amazing. Stephanie's back back in the mod role, and just a few hours ago, she was sitting opposite me having dinner with John. We had some Korean food, really good. Um, but anyway, so that is where we were a little bit earlier today. We were at the Museum of Modern Art in Manhattan, New York, and you can see the central painting there is Starry Night, with glass in front of it. On the one side is a picture of sort of cypresses, I think, and on the other side is the postman. And there's actually quite a lot to share regarding that whole experience. We saw lots of other artists. Um, I'd love to have it all set up for you, but unfortunately, when you have 2 hours taken up just trying to solve technical difficulties, then it doesn't leave much to actually do the thing. Also, I've got to be up in 6 hours now to catch a taxi for to get to the airport. So I can't really spend too much time showing you all the things that we saw. And I really regret that I've got to sort of open this with a sort of a long moan. I know it's not really what you want to hear, and it's not what I want to share either. But what I can share right now is a couple of these photos. And what I want to share with you is, can you see just how many people are looking at these three paintings? It's like a crowd, and it was actually very hard to get from the one side to the other side because there was such a bunch of people sort of pressed in, right? Um, and so, if there's any doubt that like you might be watching this thinking, I don't know what you are covering Van Gogh for. What's the fuss about? Well, maybe you want to ask some of these people. There's a line outside the Museum of Modern Art going, I don't know, Stephanie, how much was it? Half a block? Obviously, not all those people went to this, but by far the biggest throng was around Starry Night. And as I said, it's quite hard to get from the one painting to the other. And yeah, it was definitely very popular. So that's actually already past it. So strange. Okay. Okay, so let's go into some of these other images. Even little kids really fascinated by it. You can see all three of these paintings are by Van Gogh, and all three of them behind glass. That's not the sort of thing that other artworks are really, you don't really see that with other artworks. So these are some close-ups that I took of the cypresses. Let's just go back. So, by the way, you're actually not allowed to take video in uh, in the art museum. So I was taking a bit of a chance here. So Stephanie and and John and I were approached by security, and they said, "Please put your backpacks on the front of your bodies." And Stephanie, I do wonder whether they don't do that. Thanks, Stephanie, about the hat. I do wonder whether they do that almost that it's almost like that's a red flag person. Because if you notice, there were a lot of people that didn't have their backpacks, that had backpacks on, but they weren't in on their front. And the way we were rushing to get to the music to this particular painting, well, part of it is because we had to catch a show on Broadway. So we kind of had a schedule to catch, but it probably doesn't look very good from the perspective of someone perhaps targeting something in a different way. But can you see just how obsessed people are with it, just how popular this painting is? And it's so ironic that it's so popular today, and Van Gogh, the person, was so unpopular during his own life. what surprised us, what Stephen actually mentioned this, was that Starry Night is actually quite a big painting. I thought it would be um, two-thirds the size, and it's actually a fairly big painting. So something that I really didn't expect was, can you see how the edge of it is actually unfinished? Can you see that? He painted it so quickly that he didn't actually finish painting it. Like that's actually the bare canvas. That doesn't mean scraped away. That is the edge of the canvas that he didn't even finish painting. You see that? Now, if I didn't zoom in like this, would you know that this was Starry Night? Because we are so used to how thick the paint is, and it is thick. Look how thick that is. But there are little areas in between it that are not even painted on. Now that is an artist rushing to get what is inspiring him onto canvas. Look how the bare patches continue. That's bare. That's the original bare canvas. Right, and then that's going a bit deeper into the artwork, but there's still bare patches there. That's bare. That's also bare. You wouldn't think that. You'd think that the entire artwork is, thick paint, but it's not. That is bare as well over there. Bare in between. And there's also bare parts at the bottom there. Yeah. There are also bare parts along the bottom. And something else that's quite weird is Starry Night's not actually, there's no signature as far as I could see, unless I missed it. So if you look carefully here, it's actually bare here as well at the bottom. You see over here, it's also bare. Again, this just gives you an idea of how quickly he executes this, that he doesn't actually even completely cover the entire canvas. Maybe he didn't have enough paint. I mean, it's quite a lot that's bare. Look at that. There. By the way, I actually got into trouble. You're not allowed to. There's kind of a wire, um, not guardrail, but you're not really allowed to. You're not actually allowed to either lean over that barrier or even put your camera over that area. And I was obviously doing that right up to the glass. So I was definitely someone they were on high alert over. I did have some soup, but not with me the night before. Stephanie did as well, but we didn't tell them that. Again, you can see at the bottom here that it's actually also unfinished at the bottom. There's actually bare canvas running all along there. And that's what's pretty amazing about Starry Night is when you look at it, you wouldn't imagine that there's anything that's unfinished, and yet it is, which gives it a kind of roughness. And it was so ironic seeing yeah, Stephanie is 100% right. I kept getting spoken to. Um, but I did say when you photograph things, you've sometimes got to, uh, you know, cross. You don't want to break rules, but you sometimes got to cross certain boundaries. Otherwise, you can't contribute anything. So yeah, it was quite weird that this picture that we just been speaking about on this channel was one of the three pictures side by side. And so yeah, I did the same thing, just coming in quite close. There's Stephanie and John. You can see John's got his backpack facing the front. I probably got them into trouble. Are you with him, kind of thing? But just look at that big crowd. Stephanie, can you remember who painted this one over here on the side? Was it Picasso? Was this a Picasso? That is a Surat. That is right beside the three Van Goghs. So you can see how the art complements one another, how there's a similarity. Even the frame, I'm not sure if I've, even the frame of the Surat is very dotty, but that was sort of up to the curators, I guess. Can you see how dotty the frame is? But anyway, you can see how Surat was a contemporary of Van Gogh, and you can see that they kind of doing a similar thing. It's almost like a TV that's not been tuned in quite properly. Got that sort of snowy effect. Anyway, so we went from there to Times Square, and then we caught a show, Sweeney Todd, and we'll talk about that maybe some other time. You can see the weather was quite cold. That's actually Stephanie walking over there. The weather was actually quite cold and drizzling very, very softly. And the queue to Broadway was almost impossible to believe. Okay, so that's that. Where is okay? Any questions? I'm gonna just go through a couple of letters. Can't really be on for too long. I'm supposed to get a bit of sleep before the taxi arrives. So at this point, it's going to be about 5 hours sleep. So I really don't want to be on for too long. But let's try and get through the month of July. What do you guys say? The other thing to mention is there's a lot more art that I can show you, and that Stephanie can also talk to you about. We also went to the Met, and we saw other Van Goghs over there. That was actually a much more pleasant experience because we went just as it closed, and so everyone had already left, and so there was space to do what we wanted to do. So there were a lot of other artworks that we saw, all the heads of state, and I'll take you guys through that sort of step by step. I'm really sorry about the poor production value, but you just don't expect to buy a monitor and then your computer simply doesn't recognize it. So really sorry about that. You also don't expect to buy these adapters and then they don't actually work. You just don't expect things like that. So it's quite weird. But yeah, I think probably over the next few days, things will start getting a little bit more streamlined. But yeah, I do apologize. I really wanted to arrive here and be up and running with everything working, and it's really frustrating that that wasn't the case. But I have made some baby steps. So I've got um, I've got three screens in front of me: my phone, my laptop, and then another screen. And so at least that's a bit of progress. So we are making some progress. Okay. Okay. Shall we get going? Let's see some of your comments. Don't let the frustration win. I'll try not to. It's just the biggest thing is just a waste of time. You spend so much time trying to figure out simple things. Yeah, I think the gods are saying, don't work, play, have fun. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna just grab a water and then I'll be back in a second. Okay, are you guys ready to do the 25th of July? Are there any other comments? Thanks, Sharon. I appreciate that. Okay, let's try and go through a couple of letters. Right. My dear Theo, many thanks for your kind letter. If you remember, mine ended with, we are getting old. That is what it is. The rest is imagination and doesn't exist. Well, I said that more for myself than for you. And I said it because I felt the absolute necessity of behaving accordingly, of working, perhaps not more, but with a deeper understanding. Now, I think it's really incredible, both from, and I'm sure Stephanie can bear this out, that it is incredible having covered these Van Gogh letters and then going and actually seeing these artworks, not just seeing them in one of the most prestigious art galleries in the world, if not, but also Manhattan is like this incredible um, display of empire. And within these tall buildings, or between these really, really tall buildings, is a building, and then that is where you find Van Gogh artworks. And it's just so incredible how humble a place these artworks came from when you go through these letters and the toil and trouble the artist went through. And then you look at the fuss that is made about them here now. Really quite incredible. And I'm saying it's almost like if you just take Van Gogh wherever he was in all wherever, and he was always struggling, and no one paid any attention to him. And then you jump to the present, and you just put the art where it is. I mean, you can ask Stephanie. Um, all of Van Gogh's art in both galleries is almost in the deepest part of both galleries, in as a sort of security measure. In other words, you've got to go through the most trouble to get to them because they're the most valuable art. So anyone who wanted to take that art out would have quite a labyrinth to get through. Um, and so that's one aspect. The other aspect is just the amount of fuss that all the people make about it. Like it's by far the most popular artist compared to any of the others. Monet is also quite popular. We're going to talk about him as well. That's the other thing, is that the artists that he talks about are all there in those galleries as well. All of them. It's also quite amazing. Anyway, let's continue. Now you talk of the emptiness you feel everywhere. It is just the very thing I feel myself. So he's feeling empty. But the other thing he's saying is that he's starting to paint with a deeper understanding. And that it was certainly true when he was in All. The paintings that you saw um, in the Met, many of them were painted while he was in All. very few from before that. He says, considering, if you like, the time in which we live, a great and true renaissance of art, the worm-eaten official tradition still alive, but really impotent and inactive. The new painters isolated, poor, treated like madmen, and because of this treatment, actually becoming so, at least as far as their social life is concerned. What true words, what true sentiments? I mean, he had no idea how true that was. That they were bringing alive a new kind of art, and yet the way they were treated in their own time, they were isolated, treated like madmen, especially Van Gogh. In fact, he still is. And then they were so poor, and yet today, you know, those artworks are considered treasures. It's like I'm told, stay away from that picture. We don't want you to sort of breathe on it. And I did have glass in front of it, but it's like, sir, I've come. I didn't say this, but it's kind of like, sir, I've come halfway around the world just to see this picture. Sir, step away from the artwork. And Stephanie and I were kind of joking about how you could potentially make a hysterical argument that you don't understand this guy. Anyway, so here he talks about being so impotent and isolated and poor and treated like a madman in his own lifetime. And look at what a rock star he is today. It really is incredible to see all the art, some incredible artworks up there, but you just see all the crowd milling around his art. And there's something more emotional and more violent about his art than a lot of the other art. A lot of the other art seems very static by comparison, very plain. Okay, right. Then he goes on to say, then remember that you're doing exactly the same work as these primitive painters, since you provide them with money and sell their canvases for them. Remember, Theo had also done a exhibition of Monet's work in his home, right? So we saw three really big Monets in the Museum of Modern Art as well. I'll show you guys some footage of that a little later. It says, if a painter ruins his character by working hard at painting, a thing which leaves him useless for many other things, for family life, etc. If therefore he paints not only with colors, but with self-denial and self-renunciation, and with a broken heart, as far as you are concerned, your own work is not only no better paid than his, but it costs you exactly what the painters cost him. This sacrifice of the individuality, half voluntary, half accidental. These are incredible sentiments that he's sharing because he's really acknowledging his plight here. It's not that someone needs to say, do you know what you're giving up? Do you know what price you are paying and you will pay? He's well aware of it. He's saying that when he talks about self-denial, he's saying, I deny myself all sorts of things, a home comforts, a wife, a family, children, um, furniture to some extent, a job that you're getting money and you can be sort of comfortable, you can live within that comfort of knowing where your next paycheck is coming from, where he's not really getting a paycheck at all. And so that word self-renunciation really says it all, that he is um, putting himself through the washer or through the ringer in order just to produce art. He also talks about, he's working with a broken heart, almost in the sense of he's always alone. He doesn't really have friends. He doesn't have a girlfriend. And that's just a constant thing. And all of this is in service to art. And you can see where that took him. I mean, right now, today is a rock star. His art is almost like top of the podium. But at the time, look at what he had to give up, right? And then even though he gave that up, he just continued giving it up. He continued giving it up. The next month, the next month, the next month, the next year. And the price he started paying got higher and higher and higher. Anyway, he goes on to say, that is to say that if you paint indirectly, you're more productive than I am, for instance. The more irrevocably you become a dealer, the more you become an artist. And in the same way, I hope the same thing for myself. The more I am spent, ill, a broken picture, but so much more am I an artist, a creative artist in this great renaissance of art of which we speak. And once again, you sort of get to this whole idea of, hi, Andy, good to see you. Once again, you get this idea that he's prepared to pay this price. He's not like doing cartwheels. He's not terribly happy about it, but he realizes this is what it's going to take, and I'm prepared to do it. Right? Yvonne says, keenly aware of the cost. Mel says, Vincent is a gypsy in his own world. He kept on, right? So it is a huge cost. It is a great personal price that he's paying, but he's saying, you know what? I know that's the price, and shit, I'm going to pay it. I mean, what else must I do? Look at those words. I'm spent. I'm ill. I'm a broken picture. But so much more am I an artist. And it's saying, almost you need to give everything up. You need to expend, you've got to sort of wring everything out in order to, you've got to almost make art your, almost like a spouse. And then he becomes, that is how you become a true artist, a true creative spirit. Anyway, then he goes on to say, these things are surely so, but this eternally living art and this renaissance, the green shoots springing up from the roots of the old felled trunk, these are such abstract things that a kind of melancholy remains within us when we think that one could have created life at less cost than creating art. He's actually saying there, I could have created a child, I could have had a child with far less trouble than creating this art. I could have had a normal life. But the difference is you have what he calls eternally living art, and that's certainly not hubris, because his art is now more than, it's almost a century and a half old, and it's a huge hit. Who would think that? Who would imagine? Anyway, it says, if possible, you ought to make me feel that art is alive, and you who love art perhaps more than I do. I tell myself that it depends not on art, but on myself, that the only way to get back my confidence and peace of mind is to improve my art. I think that is a good title, right? Do you agree with that? So he does actually realize that that in order to stay sane, he must. It's like art has cost him his sanity, but in order to preserve it, he needs to continue painting. And he says, and then there we are again, back at the end of my last letter. I'm getting old. It's sheer imagination if I should think that art is old lumber too. Now, if you know what a mousme, I've just painted one. It took me a whole week, and I haven't been able to do anything else because I still haven't been too well. This is what annoys me, but I felt well. I would have been I would have been able to run off some more landscapes in the meantime. But to do justice to my musume, I do conserve my mental energies. A musume is a Japanese girl, 12 to 14 years old, that makes two portraits now, the Zouave and her. Take care of your health. Above all, take baths if Ruby recommends it. So um, even Theo is not well. For in the 4 years by which I'm older than you, you will see how necessary comparatively good health is for being able to work. Now, for us who work with our brains, our one and only hope of not breaking down too soon is this artificial eking out by an up to date hygienic regimen, rigorously applied as much as we can stand. Because I, for one, do not do everything I ought. and a bit of cheerfulness is better than all the other remedies. Can you see he's not suffering from depression, he's not suffering from pessimism, he's not suffering from um, sort of despair, right? And you can go letter after letter after letter, and he's not selling his art, and he's still not, suffering from depression. Okay, so he says, I've had a letter from Russell. He says that he would have written me before if he hadn't been busy moving Bell ill. He is there now and says that he would be pleased if sooner or later I would go and spend some time there. He still wants to repaint my portrait. He says I should have gone to Boussard's to see Gauguin's Negress is talking, if the same thing had not prevented me from that too. In short, he does not refuse to buy one, but makes it clear he does not want anything inferior to the one we have. You see that at all events it is better than nothing. I will write this to Gauguin and ask him for sketches of pictures. We must hurry things up and give up art soon, but regard it as a matter that will come off, but is in abeyance now. The same goes for Gulamin. I wish he would buy a figure from G. He says that he has had a very beautiful bust of his wife done by Rodin, and that on this occasion he lunched with Claude Monet and saw the 10 pictures of Antibes. I'm sending him Jeffrey's article. He criticizes the Monets very ably, begins by liking them very much. The attack on the problem, the enfolding tinted air. By the way, today we actually saw a lock of Beethoven's hair, right, Stephanie? We also saw Virginia Woolf's cane. How's that? But in a totally different place. After that, he shows what there is to find fault with the total lack of construction. For instance, one of his trees will have far too much foliage for the thickness of the trunk. And so, always and everywhere, from the standpoint of the reality of things, from the standpoint of lots of natural laws, he is exasperating enough. He ends by saying that the quality of attacking the difficulties is what everyone ought to have. Bernard has sent me 10 sketches like his brothel. Three of them were a la Redon. I do not altogether share the enthusiasm he has for that. But there's a woman washing herself, very Rembrandt-esque, an effect like Goya, and a landscape with figures, very strange. He expressly forbade me to send them to you, but all the same, you will get them by the same post. I think that Russell will buy something more from Bernard. Meanwhile, I've seen this box work. It is strictly impressionistic, but not powerful. It is the stage where this new technique still preoccupies him so much that he cannot be himself. He will gain in force, and then his individuality will break free, I think. But McKnight does watercolors of the quality of those by Destre. You remember that Dutchman we used to know. However, he has washed some small still lifes, a yellow pot on a violet foreground, a red pot on a green, an orange pot on blue. Better, but very poor. The village where they are staying is real Malay, poor peasants and nothing else, absolutely rustic and homely. That's something else we saw. We saw Malay. Um, I think we saw Malay in the Met and beautiful Malay paintings, and I'll share those with you at some point. Mostly grey. You can see where Van Gogh got his grey grounding. He goes on to say, this quality completely escapes them. I think that McKnight is civilized and converted to civilized Christianity. He's brute of a landlord. Anyway, the swine and his worthy spouse, when you go there, shake hands with you. It is in a cafe, of course, when you ask for drinks. They have a way of refusing money. Oh, I could not take money from an artist with two S's. Anyway, it is their own fault that it is so abominable, and this box must get pretty well stultified in McKnight's company. Jesus, this is a long letter. I think that McKnight has some money, but not much, so they contaminate the village. But for that, I'd go there to work often. What one ought to do there is not talk to the civilized people. Now they know the station master and a score of bores, and that is partly why they get nowhere. Naturally, these simple and artless country folk laugh at them and despise them. But if they did their work without taking up with these village lounges with their starched collars, then they could go into the peasant's home homes and let them earn a few pence. And then this blessed font of Wales would be a gold mine for them. But the natives are like Zola's poor peasants, innocent and gentle beings, as we know. By the way, Stephanie was looking at one of Van Gogh's paintings, I think in the Met, and she saw like a book in there, and she could tell there was some sort of writing on it, and we saw that Van Gogh had sort of written in there in small black letters Emile Zola. So a little detail that you might find interesting. Okay, probably McKnight will soon be making little landscapes with sheep for chocolate boxes. Not only my pictures, but I myself have become haggard of late, almost like Hugo van der Goes in the picture by Emile Wouters. So there he tells you he's feeling haggard. He's starting, remember I was saying that he's going to go down like a downward spiral, that he's going to deteriorate in many ways, physically, mentally, emotionally, and what's going to be the cause of that? Okay. He says, only having got my whole beard carefully shaved off, I think that I'm as much like the very placid priest in the same picture as like the mad painter so intelligently portrayed within. How long is this letter? I do not mind being rather between the two, for one must live, especially because there's no use ignoring the fact that there may be a crisis someday or other, if you were to change your relationship with the Boussards. I think the Boussards are the family or the bosses in charge of Goupil and Key. I think that's who they are. Another reason for keeping up this connection with artists on my part as much as on yours. Besides, I think I've spoken the truth, but if I should succeed in replacing in goods the money spent, I should only be doing my duty. And then something practical I can do is portrait painting. Yeah, we have it. As for drinking too much, if it is bad, I can't tell. So I wonder whether his brother hasn't asked him, are you drinking a lot? Right? Terry says, I love that Nick is taking time for Van Gogh letters during this hectic time and his real life art experience and meeting Stephanie, keeping him grounded so far from home. Good to see you here, Terry. Yeah, the loneliness as well. Okay, that's a reference to Van Gogh, right? That's part of the cause of the downward spiral. Okay, it goes on to say, um, look at Bismarck, who is in this case very practical and very intelligent. His good doctor told him that he was drinking too much and that all his life he had overtaxed his stomach and brain. Bismarck immediately stopped drinking. After that, he got run down and couldn't pick up. Secretly, he must be laughing hardly at his doctor because, fortunately for him, he did not consult him sooner. So much for that. A good handshake, ever yours, Vincent. So a little bit of a joke there at the end, right? Mind as to Gogh, we must not give up the idea of coming to his aid if the suggestion is acceptable as it stands, but we do not need him. So do not think that working alone bothers me, and do not push the affair on my account. Be very sure of that. You believe him when he says that? Do not think that working alone bothers me. The portrait of the girl is against a background of white, strongly tinged with malachite green. Her bodice is striped blood red and violet. The skirt is royal blue with large yellow and orange dots. The matte flesh tones are yellowish gray, hair tinged with violet. Eyebrows and eyelashes are black. The eyes orange with Prussian blue. A branch of oleander in her fingers, for the two hands are showing. Okay, let's go on to the next letter. My dear, and this is to Emile Bernard, 25th of July. I don't know if I'm going to go through the full letter, but he says, I don't have the slightest doubt that you'll admit that neither you nor I can have a complete idea of Velasquez and Goya, of what they were as men. So Stephanie, what's quite interesting here is he writes a letter to Bernard, and the very opening line is to talk about some other artist. It's actually quite amazing how that's the top of his mind and that's the top of their mind, right? It says what they were as men and as painters, for neither of us has seen Spain, their country, and so many beautiful things which are still left in the south. But what one knows of them is already something, nevertheless. Of course, as for the people of the north, Rembrandt, first of all, is highly desirable when judging these painters to know their work as a whole, as well as their country, and also the somewhat intimate and concise history of the period and of the customs of the old country. I emphatically repeat that neither Baudelaire nor you has a sufficiently clear idea of Rembrandt. So you see what's sort of kind of fascinating with this is that he writes a letter to his friend, and the letter is kind of mostly about other artists. What do you think about this? What's your position on that? Who do you know who's like that? It's not I did this with Stephanie today. I was blah blah blah, whatever. It's the content is basically what I think about this artist and what I think about that one. Right? Do you see that? Then he says, and then there's not a little paste among the diamonds. As for me, who have been studying the school of my country for 20 years now, I shouldn't even answer if it were being discussed. Because in general, I hear too much talk, which is beside the point, when the painters of the North are under discussion. So that my only answer to you is, bah, look a little closer than that. It will truly repay your trouble a thousandfold. Look here, for instance, if I declare that the Ostada in the Louvre, representing the painter's family, man, wife, and a dozen children, is a picture infinitely worthy of study and reflection, as well as the Peace of Munster by Ter Bos. And then when those pictures in the gallery of the Louvre, which I personally prefer and think most astonishing, are overlooked very often by artists, even by those who have come to see the Dutchman, then I'm not very surprised, as I know that my choice in that gallery is based on a knowledge of the subject which the majority of the French could not possibly share. So Stephanie, you've got this weird situation where we've gone to a gallery, a few galleries, looked at Van Gogh's work. Now he's talking about the experience of going to a gallery. Interesting, ironic. But if I disagreed with you, for instance, about these subjects, I should confidently expect you to grant that I was right later on. Well, he was, wasn't he? But what pains me so terribly in the Louvre is to see their Rembrandts going to ruin and the idiots of the administration letting so many beautiful pictures decay. So the annoying yellow tone of certain Rembrandts is the result of deterioration from moisture or some other causes. In some cases, I could point it out to you with a wet finger. I must say, I was quite surprised that Starry Night was quite so bright. I actually thought it would be almost like a disappointing, uh, slightly off color version, because Wheatfield with Crows is not the bright yellow that you'd expect. That's in the Van Gogh Museum. It says it is difficult to say what Rembrandt's color is, as it is to give a name to Velasquez's gray. For want of a better name, one might call it Rembrandt gold, and that is what they have done, but it's pretty vague. Coming to France as a foreigner, I, perhaps better than Frenchmen born and bred, have felt Delacroix and Zola, and my sincere and wholehearted admiration for them is boundless. By the way, we saw a couple of Delacroix artworks as well. In fact, we actually saw the one that Van Gogh was talking about, where you have Christ in the boat with the sort of star corona around. We actually saw that there. Stephanie, Deborah wants to know if I'm handsome in person. You must be honest, right? Okay. He goes on to say, since I had somewhat complete notion of Rembrandt, one Delacroix got his results by colors, another Rembrandt by tonal values, but they are on a par. In his haste, Vincent must have left part of the sentence out, but his meaning is clear nonetheless. In their quality as painters of a society, of a nature in its entirety, Zola and Balzac produce rare artistic emotions in those who love them, just because they embrace the whole of the epoch they depict. When Delacroix paints humanity, life in general, instead of an epoch, he belongs no less to the same family of universal geniuses. That's how he's thinking about art, right? In universal terms, in terms of humanity. That is why he likes Delacroix, and that's how he tries to approach his own art. And then the amazing thing is that he actually succeeded. He ultimately did succeed in reaching humanity. And Terry, I think you can agree with me that what we just saw today, that his art is like the superstar, his paintings are like the superstar of the art gallery because he was able to reach humanity with his own humanity, right? I very much like the last words of, I think, Silvestre, who ended a masterly article in this way. Thus died, almost smiling, Delacroix, a painter of a noble race, who had a sun in his head and a thunderstorm in his heart, who turned from the warriors to the saints, from the saints to the lovers, from the lovers to the tigers, and from the tigers to the flowers. What a incredible quote that is. What an incredible, so as we've said before, that he's like a bookworm, right? Van Gogh's a bookworm, and so yeah, he finds this gem. And isn't it a beautiful sentiment? Let me read it again. Thus died, almost smiling, Delacroix, a painter of a noble race who had a sun in his head. So many of these sentiments really apply to Vincent as well. He had a sun in his head. He had a thunderstorm in his heart, or stars and swirling galaxies in his heart, who turned from the warriors to the saints, from the saints to the lovers, from the lovers to the tigers, and from the tigers to the flowers. Then he says, Dumier is also a great genius. And then Millet, the painter of a whole race and the environment it lives in. Millet definitely captures the Dutch context very well. So that sort of dishwasher gray, waterlogged setup that the Dutch find themselves in. Okay, so it goes on to say, it is possible that these great geniuses are only madmen, and that one must be mad oneself to have boundless faith in them and boundless admiration for them. If this is true, I should prefer my insanity to the sanity of others. Do you think when he says this, that he's truly insane? You think that when he says, I would prefer my insanity to the sanity of others, you think he actually is insane? Or do you think he's just saying, I'm kind of doing something crazy. I'm trying to be a painter. But he doesn't mean actually crazy. He's just saying it's not normal. A lot of other people just would not put them through so much. Cool. Stephanie, I'm glad you joined me. I'm only going to be on for another 10 minutes. So, yeah, yeah, not actual insanity. Gwen, good to see you as well. Okay, so he goes on to say, perhaps the most direct road to approach Rembrandt is to approach Rembrandt indirectly. Let's talk about Frans Hals. He never painted Christ, annunciations to the shepherds, angels, crucifixions, or resurrections. He never painted nude, voluptuous, and bestial women. He did portraits and nothing else. Portraits of soldiers, portraits of gatherings of officers, portraits of magistrates assembled to debate the affairs of the republic, portraits of patrons with pink or yellow skins, wearing white caps and dressed in wool and black satin, discussing the budget of an orphanage or an almshouse. He painted the portraits of middle class men in their homes, the man, the woman, the child. He painted the drunken toper, an old fishwife in a mood of witch like hilarity, the pretty gypsy, WHORE, babies in their diapers, the dashing, self indulgent nobleman with his moustache, top boots and spurs. He painted himself together with his wife, young, deeply in love, on a bench on a lawn after the first wedding night. He painted vagabonds and laughing urchins. He painted musicians and he painted a fat cook. You know, all of those references means that he knows this artist back to front, right? It's quite amazing. Okay, so he goes on to say he does not know greater things than that, but it is certainly worth as much as Dante's Paradise and the Michelangelos and the Raphaels and even the Greeks. It is as beautiful as Zola, healthy as well as merrier, but it's true to life because his epoch was healthier and less dismal. And now, what is Rembrandt? The same thing, absolutely, a painter of portraits. One must first of all have a healthy, broad, clear notion of these two brilliant Dutchmen, equal in value, before going any further into the subject. When we have understood this thoroughly, this whole glorious republic, depicted by these two prolific portraitists, reconstructed in bold outlines, then we still keep a very large margin for landscapes, domestic scenes, animals, philosophical subjects. But I implore you, follow this straightforward reasoning carefully, for I am doing my best to present it to you in a very, very simple way. Hammer into your head that Master Franz Halstead painted of all kinds of portraits of a whole gallant, live, immortal republic. Hammer into your head the no less great and universal master painter of portraits of the Dutch Republic, Rembrandt van Rijn, that broad-minded naturalistic man as healthy as Hals himself. And then we see, issuing from the source, Rembrandt, a line of direct and true pupils, Vermeer of Delft, Fabricius, Nicholas Myers, Peter de Hoogh, Bol, and those whom he influenced. Potter, actually, uh, um, Stephanie, don't you remember seeing, just in passing, some art by someone with the surname of Potter? I seem to remember that. Reitsdal, Ustade, Ter Boch, and that was another one. I mentioned Fabricius here because we know only two canvases of his, and I don't mention a lot of good painters, especially not the paste among these diamonds, that paste so solidly crammed into the vulgar French noodles. Am I very incomprehensible, my dear comrade Bernard? I'm just trying to make you see the great simple thing, the painting of humanity, or rather of a whole republic, by the simple means of portraiture. So it's trying to say that just by painting portraits, you can kind of capture the essence of humanity. All right. The, he says this first and foremost, when later on, in the case of Rembrandt, we happen to meet with mysticism, with Christ, with nude women, then it is very interesting, but it's not the main thing. Let Baudelaire hold his tongue in this domain. His words are sonorous, but then infinitely shallow. Let us take Baudelaire for what he is, a modern poet, just as Musset is another, but let him stop being a nuisance when we are speaking about painting. I don't like your drawing lechery as much as the others. So he's actually criticizing Bernard's painting just like that. I don't like your drawing, that the one called lechery. Not much of a critique, right? I don't like your drawing as much as the others. I like the tree. That's smart. Just one line a piece, right? A handshake, sincerely yours, Vincent. So uh, apparently Bernard wrote on this letter, all this was provoked by my quoting with admiration the quatrain from Charles Baudelaire's Fares. So in other words, saying this whole rant was inspired just by these sort of four lines. Okay, let's just see what remains. It's 5 to midnight. Okay, I think this will be the last letter. It's quite a short one. Are you guys happy with that? He is brutally honest. 26 July 1888. My dear Theo, enclosed I'm sending Gorgon's letter. Unfortunately, he has recovered his health. How's yours? I wish Russell would do something. However, he has a wife and children, a studio, and a house being built. I can quite see how a man, even a rich one, cannot always spend 100 francs, no more than that, on pictures. I think it would make a tremendous difference to me if Gorgon were here. For now, the days go by without my speaking a word to anyone. Oh well. In any case, his letter gave me tremendous pleasure. If you are alone in the country too long, you get stupid. And though not yet, still this winter, I may become sterile because of this. Now, if he came, there would be no danger of this because there would be no lack of ideas. If the work goes well, so when he says sterile, he's talking about um, kind of like painter's block, right? If the work goes well and our courage does not fail, we may hope to see more very interesting years yet. Is Maria still with you? Would it be possible for me to have your letter on Sunday? I'm not counting on it though, knowing that it is the end of the month. Is it just that I shall probably have a model this week? I need some studies of figures very much, or that's not good news, right? When Van Gogh did studies of figures, it kind of means something, right? The pleasure, Stephanie. Really a pleasure, and it was really nice seeing you guys. Definitely was nice. Really made it a good couple of days. We should do it again. Um, he goes on to say, I need some figures. Just now, I have sort of an exhibition at home. That is to say, I've taken all the studies from the stretchers, have nailed them up onto the wall to get thoroughly dry. You will see that when there are a lot of them, and one can choose among them. It comes to the same thing, as if I had studied them more and worked on them longer. Because to paint and repaint a subject on the same or several canvases comes to the same thing in the end. I'm in rather a hurry, so a handshake, ever yours, Vincent. Well, I am also. So thanks very much, guys, for joining me. It's sort of just been about an hour's worth. Um, Thanks for being here. I did kind of want to share a little. It was a really exciting day. It's just a bit unfortunate that technical issues really kind of, you know, are still being ironed out, but that's the way it goes. Zircon, we went to watch Sweeney Todd, 3 hours worth. Stephanie, you must say who the other actor was. So I'm gonna give you guys a little sneak peek into where I'm going from here. I'm leaving New York tomorrow. Anyone have any ideas where I'm going? I'll um I'll put some clues onto Instagram. I'll let you guys sort of know on Instagram. You kind of gonna get an idea where I am, and then see if you know why I'm where I am and what I'm doing where I am. Like what's the plan that's sort of going on. So for example, why did I come to New York? Well, it's just to see Starry Night, right? Um, and um, and then so the next question is why am I going where I'm going next, kind of thing. So I guess we'll find out, right? The rain says you look well rested. Do I? Today definitely was a really good day. It was also nice to be away from the computer for the whole day. Mel says I'm not on Instagram. Mel, Sharon says, thank you so much. What an exquisite time. Cornelia said, loved this session, even though it was so short. What did I think of Starry Night? To be honest, I kind of wanted to just stand in front of it and, yeah, like absorb what I was seeing, but you were being jostled the whole time. So it was actually very hard to, in like a crowded situation like that, connect with the artist. Um, in the Met, it wasn't crowded, but we were rushed. We sort of had to move very quickly, even though it was sort of empty. We had to move quickly before it closed. And it definitely is a bit of a bummer that you, like I say, you fly halfway around the world, and then that precious time you have is sort of kind of undermined. But I don't know if this answers your question, but I was quite impressed just by how much power his artworks still have over people. It just I mean, I saw it when I was in Amsterdam. You had long, long queues outside the Van Gogh Museum, and it was just incredible. But I mean, those are Dutch people and other tourists queuing to see. I mean, that's only Van Gogh. But it was nevertheless, yeah, you are in New York and people are going gaga over one particular artist. It really is quite astonishing. I think I did say a few moments ago, I was really surprised to see firstly how crisp the paint still is. I don't know if it's been touched up or kind of dust has been removed. I would imagine they've done that. And then I was also surprised to see areas between the paint that wasn't covered. So you sort of realize that, I think I said this to Stephanie, you get quite a strong sense that he was caught up in a wave of inspiration, and then he painted that really, really quickly. You know, he had this rush coming over him, and he painted it. You get a sense that painting was painted not only in a physical rush where he painted it quickly, but he was caught up in a kind of sense of a rush of life. And that is, I think, also why it's such an incredible painting, was something took him over and he went with it, and that's the result. Yeah. Yeah, we did say it was definitely bigger than we thought. What's been my favorite moment so far? Um, I think it was being with Stephanie and John in in like a skyscraper at night. It was just quite magical. The whole of New York was just like a galaxy, and you're standing on glass that's kind of like a mirror, but kind of transparent. And that was just a very special thing to share, very special thing to experience, but also a very special thing to share. And it was really nice sharing it with such nice people. So that was really something that I won't really forget. I can show this to you guys. I'm not sure if you can see this on camera, but that's us. That's not actually how it appeared behind us. It was more night light. That was actually a bit closer to what it looked like. So that's quite a special moment. Not that moment, but surrounding that moment. That's more approximate to what it sort of was like. Look at the background. So you can ask Stephanie, there were like several floors of silliness. It was definitely quite fun. I will never look at a Christmas bauble the same way again, especially silver ones. Anyway, okay, guys, I'm gonna skedaddle. I've got to really get settled. It was very, very high. Yeah, yeah, great memories. Okay, I did say to Stephanie, I'm gonna, take her with me, take you with me on the next leg of my journey. And so the fact that you're not literally by my side, you nevertheless are going to share in what I see. I'm getting better every day at setting this up, and so I think you're going to be quite surprised where I'm going to be tomorrow and what lies in store. So yeah, as soon as I'm a little bit more settled, I'll try and cobble together some things like art videos, New York by day, New York by night, um, the best thing about New York, the worst thing about New York, and so on. But like at the moment, I kind of first of all, I've got stuff to do, and I don't really want to be working. And the other side is I can't really. I've kind of got to get from one point to another, So that's the other side of it. So yeah, just be a little bit patient. Within a couple of days, things are going to be a lot more regular, and it'll be a bit of a better show as well. So don't worry about that. Cornelius says it was almost a story night. Yeah, that's a great comment. You were watching a New York story night. Yeah, I mean it was absolutely brilliant. We actually wanted to go there when the sun set, but it was actually incredible um, the way it was. Uh, are you going to a trial? I am planning to. I am planning to. You're going to have to guess. I'll leave you guys a couple of clues on Instagram. Okay. Thanks. Yeah, all lit up. Thanks a lot, guys, for joining us. Stephanie, again, thanks for a lovely couple of days. Some really hilarious moments, some really crazy moments, and then also just very busy and very fun and very we were very very we just managed to get so much um what's the word we got so much out of each day. We were quite, I think, quite clever about how we scheduled everything that worked out very well, and the things that didn't work out led to other things unexpectedly working out. So it was actually really good. Um, Stephanie's husband's a really nice guy, very sweet man, very um, nice dude. He likes hot food, and I'm glad that I was able to deliver on that aspect right at the end. So yeah. Okay. Good night, Peaches. Sharon says not worried about your episodes. Okay. Thank you. No, no, no. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Off to bed. Stephanie, you must also sleep well. The rest of you, look, I'm in America right now. I'm in New York right now. So there's Manhattan right outside my window. So you guys must um, also go to bed. So I'll see you guys later tomorrow. No, they're not coming with tomorrow. No, I'm going far away. Thanks, Linda. Pleasant dreams. Thanks, guys. So, guys, thanks a lot for being here. And I'll be back with episode 51 somewhere, but also other Team Peachtree content. So check it out. I will be back on TCRS when I'm just a bit more settled, which will be maybe next week. We'll see. Cool. Hope you enjoyed this episode, guys. Remember, keep weaving, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care. Oh.